Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the 20th session of 24 Hours of Pause with Lance Tidwell. And today's session will be all about SQL Server Agent, a life preserver for the drowning DBA. Before we start, there's just a few slides I have to go through. As I said last sessions, my name is Jody. I'll be your moderator today. So, proceedings, any questions, please type it in the Q&A window. I will try and answer some, and Lance will try and answer some during the session. Otherwise, we will wait till the end of the session for questions. The next slide, please, Lance. So, if you have any technical difficulties, please just type your question in the Q&A section, and one of us will help you. Next one, please, Lance. And before we begin, it's just to thank our sponsors. Our presenting sponsors, Microsoft, Cisco, and Dell. And then our supporting sponsors, SQL Sentry, HP, and SolarWinds. And the next slide, please, Lance. Just about the upcoming PAS Summit, taking place from October 27th to 30th in Seattle, Washington. There will be over 200 sessions, world-class, presented by world-class SQL Server experts. The event is planned by the community, for the community, and PAS Summit is now the single-handedly the largest gathering for SQL and BI professionals, with over 5,000 attendees from around the globe. So, if you contact your local SQL chapter, you'll get a discount code and you'll get $150 off the 1795 price. And so I hand over to Lance.
All right. Welcome everyone. Hopefully you've heard some good sessions throughout today. I know we're getting kind of to the end of it, and I know some people are tired, some people are waking up since we're all over the place, but so I'm a SQL Server DBA for Ticket City down in Austin, Texas. Right now I'm actually in Vancouver, Canada, because I'm going to be presenting at the SQL Saturday up here, and I'm also up here on vacation, so I've been traveling today and running on very little sleep, so hopefully this goes well, but I'm a little jet lagged, but we'll see how it all goes. So, today we're going to be talking about the SQL Server Agent and all the good things it can do for you. So, let's talk about why you might be drowning. Maybe you have some monthly, quarterly, yearly reports and processes that you have to do and that you get hit up for all the time. Well, those might be a good one-time processes that need to be run outside of business hours, like at 3 a.m. and or late at night during slow periods, and you don't want to wake up or stay up and have to deal with those. So those are also good to set up for one-time jobs. And then data cleanup and data processing tasks, again, the same thing with, you can set those up as jobs. Then also if you have just trying to keep an eye on a lot of things on your servers and you just can't keep an eye on it enough, you can also set alerts for different things. And we'll talk about all those today. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about configuring and setting up the SQL Server Agent, how we're going to create operators, jobs, and alerts. We'll talk about the job history, and then we'll also talk about some common issues that can occur when dealing with the agent. So first off, we have our Object Explorer, and down here at the bottom we see a SQL Server Agent, and we see a little red down arrow beside it, and so it means it's not running. So we can right-click on the agent and then hit Start, and then we'll see something along this line where it's a loading bar where it's starting up, and then it's green. So now we've started the agent. Now we can go back to doing what we were doing before. But which I know that a lot of times with being a DBA, this is what other people think we're doing because they don't see all the hard work we're doing of keeping things running. But let's actually go into now looking at the SQL Server Agent and some of the properties. So if we right-click on it and go down to Properties, we'll see some of the things you can do in the setup of the agent itself. You can have it set up to auto restart the SQL Server if it stops unexpectedly. You can also have the agent restart if it stops unexpectedly. Then you have the place where you can put the file name or where you want to put the error log and things like that. Now for the advanced part, we've got, you can forward events to a different server. So in case you have multiple servers and want to forward events all to a central server, you can do that. Also, those events you can forward over, you can do all severities of this and above. Also down here at the bottom, we have the idle CPU condition. There's a schedule for jobs where they can run when the CPU is idle. But being an idle CPU is a very relative term because you're not just going to be at 0 CPU unless something's extremely wrong with the box and it's down. So here's where you kind of define what you consider an idle CPU. So right here we see that if the average CPU falls below 10% and does so for 600 seconds or 10 minutes, then we'll consider it idle, and then all the jobs that are set to kick off when the CPU is idle is that. Now, I myself don't know of too many good reasons to use that, but I definitely want to make sure that people know about it in case they can think of it, because I don't know, like your CPU is low and then all of a sudden you just want to kick off a bunch of jobs to knock it back up. So then we go with the alert system, the next tab. So you first need to set up database mail to get alerts. So this will be a way to get notifications on alerts and also on job failures or job successes, however you want to set them up in the jobs themselves. So you just go to the database mail and whichever mail profile you want to set up for your agent mail. Also, there's a fail-safe operator. So we'll get in this more with the operators, but in case a notification goes out to an operator and the email gets bounced back or something along those lines where they can't reach that operator, then you can set a fail-safe operator that will then get the notifications that aren't getting taken care of correctly. Also, let's go down here. Then there's also token replacement. Replace tokens for all job responses to alerts. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but just if you ever deal with something and want to know where that is, it's under there. Then under job system, we just have the shutdown timeout interval. And then in history. So here we have how long we keep the job history. You can do it by either the age of the history or the number of rows, or both of this. You can actually do it both. So you can do the maximum job history for everything in rows and also per job. So one thing to always keep in mind is these rows that it's counting is every single step in a job that counts as a row, but not just every step. Like if you have a 5-step job, every time it runs, it'll put 6 rows into history because it'll also put the header row in. So that might be something to think about if you're kind of playing around with these numbers, if you want to make sure you get all the information you want, that each step counts as a row and and each job has at least 2 rows, a header row and 1 step row. So let's go talk about operators. Operators are what we use to get the notifications from, oops, hold on a second. Enable notifications and so we can monitor stuff from the SQL Server Agent, whether it's alerts or jobs failures. It's best to have operators go to a group email instead of a specific individual. There's a couple reasons for this. One is if you have a individual that stops working at your company and they're getting all the alerts or notifications about a certain thing, and they leave, then all of a sudden no one's getting those alerts or those notifications, and that could be a very bad thing. You still have the fail-safe operator, but that's only going to be if it gets bounced back and doesn't get just forwarded into some folder that no one sees, which is a possibility. The other thing good with the group emails is for for an alert, you can have multiple operators be notified, but for jobs, you can only have a single operator be notified on a success, failure, or completion. So another reason to set up email groups instead of individuals. So like I said, you need to set up database mail before you can set up operators. So if we go and look under the SQL Server Agent, there's a tab for operators. If we right-click on it, bring up new operator. Under the new operator, we have a name and email name, and also have a NetSend address, a pager email name, and pager on-duty schedule. The NetSend and all the pager stuff are deprecated features, so that means that a future version of SQL Server, those will no longer be there. So if you're doing any kind of new development, it's not recommended to use this because they're deprecated features. So if I put in a name of an operator of Homer J. Simpson with an email name of homerjtest@gmail.com, which again, I'm breaking my rule of saying use email groups, but just for the purposes of going through kind of a demo type thing, I'm going ahead and keep kind of an individual. So then under notifications, you'll have a list of all the alerts that are set up on your system, and you can set if you want this operator to get notified of those alerts. Also, there's the jobs tab under there, or little button under there, that if there's any jobs that are set up, but since we just made this new operator, we don't see anything, but if you brought this back as a properties for this operator, if there's any jobs that notify this operator, they would show up under there. So now we have our operator. Now let's talk about jobs. So jobs are on schedule or on-demand tasks. So you can set up a schedule to run a job over and over again, or also you don't even have to set up a schedule for a job. You can set it up as an on-demand task. Those might be a good thing to have, like in case you know that, all right, I need to run this, but I only need to run it at certain times, and I want to kick it off manually. So another thing with working with the agents, a good thing is always have a good naming convention set up. Whatever works for you, but try to think of a good naming convention. Like maybe for all your on-demand tasks, you might put something in front of the names of those jobs, like OD or on-demand or on DEM, things like that. That way, all your on-demand tasks will be kind of grouped together in the list of jobs. So these can be reoccurring in one time. You can do a lot of things in jobs. You can run T-SQL, SSIS packages, PowerShell scripts, and a lot more. Another thing to watch out for is a job owner should not be in a user account. Again, that's just kind of a best practice because, again, if you have it being a user account, if something happens to that user and they're gone, all of a sudden those jobs start failing and not working. So if we look at the Jobs tab and right-click on it and bring up a new job, here we'll see a place to put a name, the owner, and a category. So you can also categorize your jobs. They have a few preset categories, but you can also add your own categories in case in case you want to, if you want to kind of keep things a little bit more tidy and needy, you can break things into categories of how you'd like. And also there's a description field. You can put more information about the job and what exactly it's doing. Under the Steps tab, we have a place where you can put it, make new steps of what you want this job to be doing. So if we click on the new, it brings up all the things to build a new job step. You give it a name, and then there's a type. Like I said, you can do a lot with jobs. ActiveX scripts, SSIS packages, SSA queries, SSAS commands, T-SQL, PowerShell. Also, you see all the replication in here too. So that's another thing to keep aware of, that if you have replication, SQL Server replication running on things, it actually uses jobs to do that replication. So then if you go to the Advanced tab, you can set up what you want to do when this step of the job succeeds. You can either have it go to the next step, quit the job reporting success, or quit the job reporting failure. Also, if we had more steps in there, you could actually have it go to a specific job or a specific step in your job. Then we have retry attempts under there. So in case for some reason the job fails the first try, you can actually set up how many times you want to retry that step, and also the interval of how many minutes you want to wait between retrying. And then on failure, you can quit the job reporting failure, go to the next step, or still quit the job reporting success. It gives you that flexibility because even though, and on both the success and failure, even if the success happens, it might be a failure, and if a failure happens, it might be a success. So they kind of let you do that, but they kind of order it in the most likely thing you want to do. So that's why you see on here the quit job reporting failures up top, then next step, and then success is the bottom one, because if it failed, they think most likely you're not want to say that the job reported successfully. You can also...
Sorry to interrupt. Here's one question for you. How do you skip a job or a series of steps in a job?
Sorry, say it one more time.
One of the questions is how to skip a step or series of steps in a job.
How to skip a step or a series of steps in a job? Well, if you, let's say you've got 5 steps in a job. Like I said back here, and you want it to be on success, you still want to skip these other steps. Like you're on step 2 and you want to skip 3 and 4 and go directly to 5. You can actually, it'll show you on this list if you have more steps, all the other steps, and so you can actually have it go to that specific step on success, and then if it drops down to 5, whatever you want 5 to do, it can either go back to 3 or 4, or it can just end reporting success. So hopefully that kind of answered that. Also, you can log to a table. So that way, yeah, I'm not going to get too much in that. Then you can also include the step output into the history. So if that step brings back an output or brings back a return set, you can also kind of bring that back into the history. And then also, if you want to have this job step run as a particular user, you can do that down here. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the schedules. Now, schedules with jobs is kind of my favorite thing because it gives you a lot of flexibility. Because a job can have multiple schedules, and then each of those schedules you have a pretty big flexibility. So if you want a job to run in some weird time or weird sets of times, you can do so. You can go down here and hit new, and also there's the pick next to it. New would bring up where you can build a new schedule. Pick, there's a few generic, like every 5 minutes, every hour, that are built in that you can pick. And then also, if you have other jobs already out there running, their schedules will show up as well. So in case you want to have multiple jobs running all on the same schedule, you can do so. So if we hit new and bring up a new schedule, again, we put a name. And again, like I said, with a lot of stuff with the agent, you want to kind of come up with a good standardized format of how you name the schedules, especially to kind of try to be as clear of what exactly that schedule is, so that way in case when you go to pick schedule, you can kind of see what, by reading the name of the schedule, you can kind of see what that schedule is, and then if you want to use it for another job, you can. You can also, the scheduling type, you can have it do it when SQL Server Agent starts to automatically run this job. Again, we talked about the CPU idle condition in the properties, so you can also have that be the schedule of when the CPU comes idle to go ahead and run it. There's reoccurring and also one time. So with a one time, you just pick a date, time, and it'll run it then. If we go to reoccurring, then we get into quite a bit of options. So frequency, we have weekly. So we can do it where weekly, every Sunday run. And then also that happens every 1 week, every 2 weeks. So you can have it happen bi-weekly, every 3 weeks happen. And you can have, even though Sunday is highlighted, you can have any of those days highlighted. So in case you want to run this every Wednesday and Tuesday and Sunday every other week, you can set that up with just one schedule. And then let me go back also to down here at the daily frequency. So those tell you what days you can have it running, and what, but then also during that day, you just want it to occur once and what time, or then also you can have it occur every so many hours, minutes, and in between a certain time period. But if we also go, which I think I'll talk about here, yeah, with daily, we'll see that we want it to occur once at 12 a.m. Monthly. So here we can also have things happen monthly where it's the first day of every month or every other month. Again, however, you can have it skip as many months as you want. You could also have it be the first Monday of every month or the first Tuesday. I think you can be the first, second, third, fourth, last of any of those, and also not just days of the week. Other options in there is also, I believe, weekday and weekend. So if you want it to happen on the last weekday of the year or of the month, I mean, you can do so. Yeah, daily frequency is what I talked about. You can have it do once a day, or during that time, you can do multiple calls, however, at whatever interval you want, with whatever starting and ending range you would like that. In case you only want it to run every 30 minutes, but you only want it to run it during a certain time frame. Then we also have a duration. So you can set up the job to start at a certain date. So in case you set up a new job, but you actually don't want it to start until next quarter or a month or two down the road for some specific reason, you can do so. There's also an end date. So in case you only want to run this job for so many days or so many months, you can set up an end date. And again, like I said, you can also pick. You can have set alerts, not just to send out a notification to an operator. You can also have it run a job. So that would show you any alerts that call this. All right, sorry. Then there's notifications. So here we get into, so we can set up an email to succeeds, fails, or just when it completes, we can have it email an operator. Again, the page and net send are deprecated. You can also have it write to the Windows application log, and also you can have it automatically delete the job when it succeeds, fails, or completes. So in case you have like a one-off job that you have running at the off period or something like that, if you go, all right, when that succeeds and done, just go ahead and delete it because I don't want to have to deal with it anymore, you can do so. So let's actually take a look at creating a job. So under here, we've got our agent and our job. So we're going to go make a new job. So again, you probably want to change the owner, but we're just doing quick and dirty. Now we're going to have this be step name and I'm going to have it run on AdventureWorks SP test. This is my saving success on failure. Here we go. Now if I go to schedules, I already showed you kind of new. Here we'll kind of see what pick actually shows. So like I said, there's a few that are already built. So there's a collector schedule every 10 minutes, 15, 30, 5 minutes, and things like that. Also in here you can see how many jobs, which is a good thing to know, because if you start playing with schedules, you can have an issue where if you decide to change a schedule, instead of making a new one and using it instead and dropping the old one, if you edit a schedule, you're not just editing the schedule for that one job, you're editing it for all the jobs that are running that schedule, which might not be ideal and something you'd probably want to make sure you're not doing. But I'm just going to say, let's go ahead and do we'll just pick the every 30 minutes. Again, notifications, I'm going to go ahead and put this to Homer J test when this fails. So I could wait 30 minutes and sit here and play solitaire, but I'm going to go ahead and, instead of waiting for it to run, I'm going to, wait a second, I'm going to start job. So this is the way you can on demand run a job. So we see that we have an error. With that error, I should have got notification. Now, I'm kind of not doing this exactly right because my demos weren't working just about an hour ago when I was trying to test these, but I already had the one saved off. So here I am in Homer J mailbox. Here we'll see what he gets of notification when that job failed. So he'll see the job name, he'll see that the job failed, and that it was who it was invoked by, and the last step that was run. It was the first step, and it was test step 1, which in ours it was named differently, but you kind of get the idea of what happened. So that tells you what job failed, when it ran, how it was invoked, and the step. Unfortunately, that doesn't give us enough to really go off of. So if we actually right-click on the job and bring up history, we'll see, if we go down to, because here's the header up top, and we see pretty much that same information that was sent in the email, that the job was invoked and the last step that ran was step 1. If we go to the actual step history and look at it, it gives us a little bit more details. And here we see that the reason it failed is because it couldn't find the procedure, because I didn't actually make that procedure, so it couldn't run that. I've always kind of found that a little bit infuriating, and I've done this on a few jobs that I've got. I've come up with a little script. This is not a pretty script and not a clean script, but it's something that if you contact me, please feel free, and I will give it to you to look over, and you can clean it up and do what you want. But the reason I kind of show it is, so we have all this, we see all this GUI stuff. We know where the job history is on the GUI. Where this stuff is actually being stored is in the MSDB system database. So I've made this proc called SP job fail details. You give it the job name and give it an email address to send, because what I'm going to do is, instead of sending the notification that it wants to, I want to call this proc instead, and have it send out the notification giving me the information I want. So here I'm kind of just querying the sys jobs, the history, and doing a few things. Again, it's not very pretty, and then sending a DBA or DB mail to the email address with some of the information. So now if I go back and let's go ahead and edit my test job, and if I make a new step, go back and actually get most of that. And go ahead and copy and paste some of this stuff, and I'm going to go ahead and name the step the proc of SP job fail details. I have it on EventWorks 2012, that proc right now. Probably wouldn't put that in the master database or something else, but again, this is kind of a rough thing, and it's not really, it's not really for you to take and go use, but more take and kind of think about more if you want to and expound upon. So my job name for this one though is not, it is SP test job. So let me change that. Oops. So on a success. So I'm going to set up the other step here in a second, but it's only going to get to this step if a failure happened in another step. So even if it's on a success, I want this job to still say, hey, quit the job after this runs and report failure. And if it fails, I still want it to save report failure, because then even my logging or my new notification stuff isn't working. So let's go back to our first step, and now here we'll see on success, we'll quit reporting success. On failure, we'll have it go to our new job fail details. So then when we run this and start it at the first one, again, it'll fail again, but then our email, so no, I actually want to look at the new one because those are kind of messed up, will give us a little bit more information. Like I said, it's not pretty, it's just gave me what I wanted, because that message in the step history gave me more information about why that step actually failed. So you definitely want to would want to pretty it up a little bit and give a little bit even more information. But here I just have it now returning me that information of why that step failed, and I see that it couldn't find the store procedure. So then I know from my notification a little bit more of why it failed, and I don't have to go look through the history to actually find why it failed. Let's go back. So let's talk about some common issues you can have with jobs. Now, I know for most companies we should be using like UTC time or something that a good standardized time. But I know a lot of people out there have, even if they are working with international customers, still have their servers set to their local time. And if their local time has daylight savings time, there can be issues with those servers. So when daylight savings time happens, like I can't remember which one's which, of when you leap forward or leap back, but so let's say all of a sudden your servers jump ahead an hour. That one isn't, well, both of them are great, but that one might not be too bad. But what that will do is, that means that every single job that was supposed to run in that hour will all run right then. Because how the agent works, it looks at, all right, here's this job, it ran, all right, after it runs it goes, all right, next time I need to run this job is at this time. And so as soon as that server goes past that time, it'll run that job. So even though it jumped ahead like maybe 30 or 40 minutes, it'll go, oh, I'm late, go ahead and call that now. Now, if you roll back an hour, then you have an issue where, all right, let's say it's 3 a.m. All right, I run my job at 3 a.m. And the next time I need to run, I'm running every 5 minutes. So then at 3:05 I should run it. But all of a sudden time moves back to 2 a.m. Well, it's going to say, well, the next time I need to run this is at 3:05 a.m. So then for that entire hour and 5 minutes, the job's not going to run. So those are some things to be careful of. Even if you are using UTC, I've had this happen to me where we had a hosted instance of SQL Server, and the vendor had an issue where our server went down, and then they brought it back up. And when they brought it back up, they brought it back in a completely different time, and it was way too far, like hours ahead. So then our system admin, he went back and goes, all right, I'll change the time back to what it should be. And all the jobs we had running on that weren't running for a while. We're like, why aren't the jobs running? Well, it's because of that. I've tried to find a better solution for it, but the quickest and easiest way I found it is script out the jobs and just drop them and recreate them to reset it, their knowing of, all right, when's the next time I need to run this job. If you know of a better way of doing it, I'd love to hear it, because I racked my brain for a while a couple years ago trying to figure out a better way, but that was what I came up with. Also, we talked about sharing job schedules and how that can be a good thing, but also can be a bad thing, because if you start editing shared schedules, you're not just changing it for that one job, you're changing it for multiple. Again, we also talked about email notifications aren't as helpful as they could be, but you can make them, you can kind of take my proc or my idea with that, and if you want to, you can kind of get in there and actually look in MSDB a little bit more and make your own notifications. That might be a little bit more helpful. Other issue is long-running jobs might go unnoticed. So if you have a job that's running for quite a while, it might not be noticed that it's been running, because sure, you might get a notifications on failures, but if it just keeps on running, there hasn't been a failure, you might not get notification. So let's get into alerts. So alerts are performance or event-based notifications. Again, you can have multiple operators be notified when an alert happens, and also you can run a job in response of an alert being raised. So here we have an alerts, and here you also see that I've already have a few alerts set up, and these are all kind of some basic good alerts to have on your systems, because they're all the fatal errors. There's a Glenn Berry from SQL Skills blog post about this, and I have a link to it at the end, so if you want to take a look at that, please do. So let's look at making a new alert. So you have a name, everything has a name, and you can set it up to be an event alert, and you can have it be for all databases or a specific database. You can have it be for an error number or a severity level, a specific severity level. Also, you can have it be an error number or a severity level, and where the message contains a certain text. So if you want something that goes, all right, when this error number occurs and this message contains this text, send an alert. You can also do performance condition alerts and also WMI alerts. I'm going to have a script out to make a WMI, which that is a Windows management instrumentation alert for deadlocks. I'll show a kind of example of that, but I'm not going to get too much into that. So if we look at the performance alerts, under here there's a lot of things you can alert off of. And so I'll definitely say, if you want to look at these and kind of, I can't really go through them all, because you first have all your objects that you can alert off of. There's buffer node stuff, there's all sorts of stuff in here. Locks, latches, file tables, plan cache, transactions, which I have highlighted. So, and then under transactions, you have all the counters for transactions that you might be looking at. Snapshot transactions, things like that. Free space and temp DB, and also like longest running transaction. So if you put longest transaction running time, you can have the alert happen if that counter rises above a certain value. Now, what exactly that value is for that one, I don't remember right off, but you can definitely should be able to find it pretty easily if that's off of seconds or milliseconds or whatever. I believe it probably is seconds, but don't hold me to that. Again, what do you want to do when this alert gets raised? You can execute a job, or you can notify an operator, or both. So, I mean, if you wanted to, you could execute a job that, like with this one, kill the longest running transaction. So if you have, I wouldn't recommend that, but that might be something you'd want to do with this one, since you're seeing that, hey, you've got a transaction running this long, you don't like it, so you're just going to kill it blindly, which is not a good idea. But then you have options, include error text in the email, and also you can add your own text. And then there's the delay between response. This is definitely good for performance alerts, because if you're having an alert about your CPU being high or something hitting a certain threshold, you don't want to get hit with that every second. So this is where you set up how long to wait between alerts. So it's like, all right, I know my CPU's high, but don't tell me again unless it's high still for another 5 minutes or 5 minutes later. So we'll look into creating an alert. I'm not going to right-click it through and all that stuff. This is pretty much a script you can find from a Books Online article, which also I've got linked at the end of this slide deck. And again, this slide deck is currently up on the 24 Hours of Pass website, so you can be able to find it and find the link there. So here we're just creating a deadlock events table. We're adding a job to capture deadlock graph and adding the job step. So also we kind of see, without the GUI to do it, you can, for the real hardened DBA that doesn't like the GUI, they can actually call these procedures to make everything they need for the procedures or for the jobs. And then they added an alert. So it's an alert. It's a WMI alert. The query is off of deadlock graph and capture deadlock graph. So I'm just going to go ahead and run all of this. All right. Class queries, this namespace, that query. All right. Again, I'm having issues with a lot of my demos, but let's just act like that worked. So, because I still have the information of showing of when everything works. Unfortunately, I can't show everything I want to, but I can still do a lot of it. So here's also, again, with that article, gives you a example of how to set up a deadlock. So if I first run this, and then run this part, so now this one's got a hold on the product table, and this one's got a hold at the location table. So now I'm going to try to query the product table, but the other one's got a hold of it. And this one, before it commits, is going to try to get a hold of the location one. So they're both trying to get the same stuff and waiting. So we have a deadlock. So now with that deadlock, with all that set up, we actually get a message that tells you date, time, and kind of what happened. Unfortunately, I can't show it because I didn't get it, but we're also running a little bit quick on time, so I'll bring up another alert that I've got in here to kind of show you some things. If you go to the properties of the alert, the history tab. So in the history of for an alert, it'll just show you the last time the alert happened, the date of the last response, because those can be different because you've got the delay, and also the number of occurrences you've had. And in case you feel you've got everything that was causing that alert out of the way and want to reset the counter, you can do that. And when you hit OK, it resets the counter. So again, here are those links. And again, like I said, this slide deck will be up on is currently up on the 24 Hours of Past website. There's the Glenberry post about how to create some critical alerts for your agent, and then the books online about making that WMI alert off of the deadlock graph. So you can kind of take that and play around with those yourself. Please feel free to contact me. My email is silentdba@gmail.com. Also, my Twitter is at Lance_LT, and feel free to follow me and contact me there if you have any questions or comments or anything else. So, do we have any questions?
Cool. Thanks lots. Yes, we do, sir. Let me get to them. I have a job which executes reoccurring once in 5 minutes. Sometimes the job may not finish within 5 minutes. Will the new schedule be started? Will the new schedule overlap the job that's running?
So yeah. So let me make sure I've got this right. So you have a job that's supposed to run every 5 minutes, and it runs over 5 minutes. So when does it run again? So I believe how that works is it will, let's say it's supposed to run at 12:05, but the job didn't end until 12:06. It won't start. The job won't start immediately after. It'll go, all right, well, 12:05, that time's gone. It'll actually start again at 12:10, the next 5-minute period when it's supposed to have. Because I have a similar job that runs on a very odd job that runs every minute because they want it to run constantly, pretty much, and sometimes it does take over a minute to do, and so we have to wait until the next minute rolls over before it runs again. So, but I think that the same should be for like a 5-minute job, that it'll wait the next 5-minute interval, and it won't start immediately after ending.
Okay, and then what's the other one? Within a job state, is it possible to find when a particular job instance started for recurring jobs?
Started. Are you? So, like when the job was created, or I'm thinking about that one. I would believe, let me go ahead and bring this up, that one thing you can see is with a job, if you bring up the properties, you can see the created date of the job, so you know when it was created, and last modified and last executed. So that gives you a lot of information, but also if you have a reoccurring job, that it's hard to know exactly when it started running. Most likely it was close to the created date, but like we showed earlier, you could have schedules where it's like you could create the job and have the schedule for the first time that it runs not be till a month later.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. Yeah, that seems to be all the questions.
All right.
So, guys, thank you very much for attending the session. All the scripts and slides and the video recording will be available next week from the 24 from www.24hoursofpass.com. Thank you for attending. Our next session will be on the hour, understanding and visualizing data using R and SQL Server, which is an awesome session, presented by Thomas Castro. Yeah, so once again, I would like to thank Lance for his time. And I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Microsoft, Dell, Cisco, SQL Sentry, and HP and SolarWinds. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.